So please give a very warm welcome to Chris Baugh, Assistant General Secretary of the Press.
Thanks, Sarah, and brothers and sisters, comrades. It's always a great honour and privilege to bring my personal and political solidarity to this rally and to share a platform with and listen to the reports of inspiring struggles that we're going to hear about, not just in the UK, but to hear from Juan in Spain, a political coming together, if I may say, that warms the cockles of the heart. That's testing Danny's translation. To hear from Sharma about the struggles in the United States and to celebrate the ideas of socialism, because what better or more important time to celebrate those ideas than in the here and now? In a world dominated by a tiny elite, the richest 1% own half of the entire global wealth, while 3.5 million, 70% of the world's working population possess a miserly 2.7% of global wealth. In the UK, the 7th richest economy in the world, we've seen since the financial crash an obscene transfer of wealth from the poorest towards the super rich, where an atrocity like Grenfell can occur in one of the richest boroughs in the world. While we've also seen a ruthless assault on the poorest and most vulnerable in our society in the name of so-called benefits reform, hitting the disabled people with particular force, forcing over 1 million people to survive on food banks, and the social catastrophe that is universal credit that must be fought until the Tories are forced to scrap it. The election of Trump in the United States, the growth of the far right in Europe, history reminding us of the need to mobilize against the racists and the fascists whenever they rear their ugly face, but history also reminding us of the need to always put a socialist alternative to the conditions upon which the racists and the fascists feed. And all the while, capitalism's voracious pursuit of profit brings the planet inexorably closer to environmental disaster. Faced with this, to paraphrase Marx, it is socialist ideas that can not just explain the world, but can help us change it. Because in Britain, after 30 years of a high-octane, deregulated form of capitalism, third of manufacturing went to the wall, finance sector built on explosion of credit and reckless speculation, a service sector built on poverty wages and super exploitation, unions tied up in a panoply of anti-union laws. We were told all of this was the road to salvation. And instead, we see the financial crash, the financial system coming close to meltdown, bailed out with unimaginable amounts of public money that we find out was ours, that we have to repay, and becomes the pretext for the biggest assault on the social gains won by the British working class in post-war years. And it's in this context that Socialist Party comrades in PCS have worked as part of the left, have played, I would argue, an absolutely pivotal role in defeating a rotten right wing with proven links to Thatcher and the security services. The role that we played in fighting back to defend our members and galvanizing wider support for public action against austerity, and in defying attempts by the Tories to break our union. In the words of a paper put to the HMRC board, how to achieve the organisational degradation of PCS's capacity to represent its members. They attacked our facility time. They tried to choke off our finances. Well, I'm pleased to report that we re-signed the overwhelming majority of members back into the union. And as an added bonus, we've managed to force £3 million in compensation from the Department of Work and Pensions that we're now going to happily pay for our industrial action in the future. So PCS have defied these attacks, and we fight on. And these attacks on PCS, of course, and in fact the attacks on the British trade union movement and the anti-union laws are not, as we know, because unions are irrelevant and some relic of past struggles, but in fact for reasons precisely the opposite. And it is the bosses and the capitalist class who understand that. And I must say, in this situation, I believe the launch of the public campaign by Mark Sawatka and Janice Godrich to replace me as AGS and conduct a political attack on the Socialist Party is a serious error of judgment and is damaging to both the left and the union, and will be only celebrated by the enemies of the union and our employer. I want to thank the party, the comrades, both in PCS and outside, for your support. And rather than the coronation that was expected, we are in fact in the middle of a major campaign that has won support right across the union from areas like the National Gallery. All the better new young reps are coming towards our campaign, a campaign based on our record, on union democracy, on a leadership that's prepared to learn the lessons of the pay ballot, about how we mobilise members to secure the necessary legal mandate for industrial action, how we link the fight on pay with the stream of attacks on jobs and conditions we see in the civil service, and how, on the one hand, we can build through the TUC and, I should say, direct with those unions that are preparing to fight, to build the mass action that we've needed for far too long in Britain that can defeat an enfeebled Tory government. Now, whatever the outcome of the Left Unity or PCS membership election that takes place next year, for public sector workers in the civil service, in local government, in social care, in NHS, in schools, in FE colleges, universities, in emergencies and the fire services, the idea that austerity is over is an absolutely sick joke. Now, the TUC met and celebrated its 150th anniversary. It has a proud history of struggle, but you could be confused into thinking that the low strike figures, the decline in density, the reduction in union membership, the rise in the average age of trade unionists, of course, that is a result of a calculated attack by the ruling class, most notably in the defeat of the miners, and of course it's a failure of the TUC to mobilise a fight back. But my point being that this disguises that the real fact that workers need unions now more than ever. It disguises the latent power of unions, and to rebuild and to reach out to the millions of unorganised workers on poverty pay and precarious conditions, we need to learn from and follow the example set by the RMT, defending public safety, the magnificent campaign of the CWU to defend its pension scheme, the Bakers and Unite and independent voices like United Voices, organising some of the super-exploited workers in the capital, and the most magnificent strike of Unison and GMB members in Glasgow to win equal pay. And like the strike at Dagenham in the 60s, this sets an absolutely marvellous example. And of course, the opposition of Labour and the opposition of the SNP and all of the opposition met to any group of workers fighting to win equal pay is not just because it's going to cost them $1 billion in Glasgow, because it opens up the possibilities of victories in every single town hall and every local authority in the UK. So let me just by finishing, let me just say I want to bring, and thank you for the opportunity to bring solidarity from my union, from a personal and political perspective, to all workers in struggle in UK and internationally. that union comrades, I'm sure, will play a big part in the discussions this weekend, in the resurgence of socialist ideas, where unions will play an absolutely central part in the struggle of the workers of the world against capitalism, against climate change, to win what is rightfully ours and to win a socialist world. Thanks for listening.